I hate the American gun debate. I really can't stand it as an outsider looking in to them bicker with each other because it just doesn't really make any sense or seem worthwhile in what they're doing. And I'll explain why I have this opinion. But first, we also have to shill. So mentioning here the article from you here, Britain's aversion to self-defense.
It's not my aversion
written
to
by
self-defense.
But yeah, essentially, Britain has our own problems in that regard, of course.
We gave up our gun rights.
Yeah.
That's basically it. And then it just snowballs from there. So be warned, America. Look to us for an example of what might happen.
And this is the message you get endlessly from outside the United States, and rightfully so, because it is a genuine problem. And if we go to the next one here, we can see Beto O'Rourke from Texas in his early debates, in which he openly said, "Hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15s." That's a beautiful dislike ratio right there. I wonder why YouTube had to hide the dislikes.
They really do hate the AR-15s, don't they?
Yeah, they're obsessed with them. But if we go to the next one, I mean, this is all obviously in response to the latest mass shooting, and this is just true of all time. With the United States, it's going to be another mass shooting that the media will jump on, and it'll either be because he's white, therefore it's a sample of white supremacy, or he's not white, therefore it's we need gun control, and that's the formula. It's simple as. And as you can see with the meme here, all this acts of violence make me wish I was less capable of defending myself, which is doubly true in this case with this meme, because if you scroll down, of course, this is in response to the fact that the cops stood around and didn't go in and get the gunman.
It did nothing except prevent the parents from saving their own children.
Yeah, and if we get to the next link, we can see Elon Musk's response to all this, which is to recognize why the United States exists. Fundamentally, the right to bear arms is an important safeguard against potential tyranny of the government, says Elon. Just 100% true.
I will say, Elon's come out saying that, but I have seen other tweets from him saying basically that there should be stricter gun regulations on like assault rifles and stuff like. I know it's not an assault rifle, but things like AR-15s. He's come out saying that we need stronger regulations on that, and so I do think he is a bit mixed on this because the moment you start to introduce stronger and stronger regulations, that's when the snowball effect starts to take place.
But it's a recognition of why the United States exists and what the purpose is for. The fundamental philosophical point.
He's doing better than some.
Yeah, he goes on to say, historically maintaining their power over the people is why those in power did not allow public ownership of guns. And yeah, I mean, the Second Amendment basically is the United States, if we're being factual about it, which is, I've joked before, saying that the right to free speech in America is guaranteed by the Second Amendment. Not because I don't know the First Amendment, but because that's where it is, really.
And that's the one that safeguards all the other rights.
Yeah, if you didn't have the second one, you wouldn't have the first one. It's simple as, and everyone goddamn knows it.
I forget what it is. Was it the massacre of Little Rock or Littlefoot or something, where they took out like 300 or so Native Americans in 1890? That was predicated on the basis of the American government coming in and be like, don't worry, we're just going to confiscate your guns for your own good. They took all the guns and they shot them all. Well,
that's true of all governments around the world that take guns. But if we go to a specific example which relates to Americans and American citizens, this is one that I'm annoyed doesn't get talked about more, frankly, in relation to the US gun debate, which is they have the Battle of Athens here in 1946. Now, for people who don't know about this is amazing and also weirdly relevant. The Battle of Athens was a rebellion led by citizens in Athens, Tennessee, against the local government in August of 1946. The citizens, including some World War II veterans, accused the local officials of predatory policing, police brutality, political corruption, and voter intimidation. A guy called Cantrell engaged in electoral fraud. He did. It's factual. YouTube, not me. Both by intimidating voters who voted against him and by allowing ineligible people to vote. The US Department of Justice investigated these allegations of electoral fraud in 3 different elections, but took no action. He then, in the election in 1946, decided to just take the ballot boxes to the jailhouse.
So he could just stuff them himself?
It's just, these are mine now. So the veterans who had come back from the war were like, yeah, you may have gotten away with this during the war, but now you're definitely not. And they just shot the crap out of the jail until they surrendered. And then the what was it? I think it was the National Guard turned up and said, "Okay, boys, let's deal with this." And they did. And yes, he was engaging in fraud. And then they redid the whole elections, and all the non-partisan GI candidates won their seats.
What a surprise!
I mean, there you have it. A box standard version of, well, what is the Second Amendment for? Well, okay. Corrupt, tyrannical government rigging elections in Athens.
People fight back.
With guns. If they didn't have the guns, then too bad. Just too bad. What are you going to do about it? And they got the election overturned and things put correctly.
Yeah, if you want more information on that, actually, Count Dankula has a fantastic video going through it, so be sure to check that out.
He certainly does. There's also a movie about it, which is quite nice.
Oh, really? Oh, nice.
This is why, if we go to the next one here, just an image, and I think you've missed a link here, John, if you can load it up, which is there should be an image here of Turtle Man, and it's not relevant to Turtle Man himself, but it's the fact that he's at an NRA convention holding up a musket, and I must admit there is something very inspiring about the whole thing. And can we get that up, John? But it's just the fact, there we are. It's look at it. I mean, just look at it. I mean, that is the purpose of the United States.
And that's what the United States was founded on, right there.
Yeah. We have our own power to self-defense. We are unique in this regard compared to the rest of the world, especially in the fact that, well, our country exists because of rebellion against the crown, which, shame, but oh well, is what it is. But that's the thing. This is why I hate the debate and why I call it a debate, because it's not really a debate. There is no debate about getting rid of the Second Amendment from serious people in American political discourse. It's not a real thing in the sense of if someone says they're going to get rid of the Second Amendment, everyone just thinks of them as insane. And rightfully so. Because they're just like, right, I want to abolish America. Yeah, well, you're not part of the debate, folks.
I mean, for a long time, that has been the overriding plan, as far as I see it, to just abolish America as it stands or stood.
Well, that's exactly what these people are essentially doing. And it's just the idea that if you get rid of the Second Amendment, well, what does the United States become? Well, it becomes just like any other European country, frankly. I mean, the same thing happened in the UK with the fact you had got rid of the guns, and then we have Tony Blair's reforms, which Europeanized us even more to the point now that
I think it was
we're kind of a meme internationally.
1997, right before he was elected, there was a school shooting here, which a lot of ideologues over in America are pointing out, oh, there's a school shooting, and then what did England do? We all handed over our guns and accepted all of these stricter gun regulations and stuff, such like that. It's like, now there's not been a school shooting. Well, do you know what would have been a prevented school shootings while also maintaining our rights?
Well, I believe the reforms in guns is about Hungerford. Mostly in the UK.
Well, there was Hungerford, but then there was also, I forget what it was, Dunbar. No, not
anyway,
Dunbar.
Irrelevant to my point, which is just the fact that if you get rid of the Second Amendment in the United States, what do you end up with? You end up with another European country, frankly. I mean, there's nothing really unique about the United States if it becomes a place which is not primarily about freedom. And the freedom to self-defense is one of those things, which is the right to bear arms, of course. So I'm not going to go through it. But it's just something you see throughout the Anglosphere, which is that most of the rest of the Anglosphere has gone down that European route of becoming one which is not obsessed with the freedom of the individual to defend themselves and bring up a world in their proper order, but instead obsessed with the freedom of the state.
To tyrannize you.
Yeah. What else does the state do? But anyway, I've also seen the argument, how many kids have to die before you ban guns, and I love that Carl mentioned me earlier, you saw a meme that said, well, how many rapes have to happen before you cut your dick off? It's just a stupid question.
Yep, it's just as dumb an argument.
Yeah. If we get the next one here, we also have just the news on all this, which is black and white. That's not a pun, I just realized that. As you can see here, this is an article that says mass shootings are soaring with black neighborhoods hit hardest. I don't have to read any more of this article. You know what this means. Let's be frank. And that's the thing, which is mass shootings, whether they actually happen in schools? No. So what are you doing? You're using the exemption to prove a rule that doesn't exist. If we go to the next one, we then have the fact that, of course, the majority of mass shootings are all handguns. Can you guess where?
I could give it a try.
That's not. Which is why, if we go to the next one, this is why I was most surprised by Joe Biden, which is just him taking on the issue, as the leftists probably should if they were being honest for once, head on, which is to say that I'm not an American, frankly. Biden on 9mm ammo. Second Amendment was never absolute. I'm going to ban 9mm.
But there's that bit at the end that says shall not be infringed.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty absolute.
But also just all the way down to 9mm now. Okay, let's play the clip.
And they showed me a X-ray. He said a 22 caliber bullet will lodge in a lung, and we can probably get it out, may be able to get it and save the life. A 9mm bullet blows the lung out of the body. So the idea of these high caliber weapons is there's simply no rational basis for it in terms of if it's about self-protection, hunting. I remember. The Constitution, the Second Amendment, was never absolute.
I mean, it's hard to hear him through that, so I wrote down what he said. But he says, a 9mm bullet blows the lung out of the body.
I mean, that sounds pretty useful to me.
I mean, I don't know anything about guns either, Biden. But that doesn't sound true to me, but I guess the Americans and the audience will let us know. There's also, he goes on to say, so the idea that these high-caliber weapons, in reference to the 9mm, as a high-caliber weapon, there is simply no basis for it in self-defense or hunting.
I mean, judging if what he is saying is true, which I doubt it is, that sounds like an excellent use for hunting and self-defense.
But also just, why would you use a handgun to defend? Because I'm in a house. I don't want a long barrel, surely.
And you
I
probably
would've
wouldn't
thought.
take just your handgun to go hunting bears. This is true.
And then he says, remember that the Second Amendment was never absolute. I mean, it's good that he's just openly said it. It's like, finally, we got to the legitimate Europeanized position of the American left, which is that they want to turn America into a country that is like any other land place on earth rather than the United States as the land of freedom that it is. Just say, okay, yeah, 9mm, that's going to be banned as well. Good for saying it, I guess. If we get the next one, probably shouldn't be surprised by this because, well, there should be another link in here, John, if you can let it up, but this one is funny, which is guns should not be in the hands of the mentally unstable, says senile man with nukes from the Babylon Bee, which, yeah, that's 100% true. But if we go to the next one here, we can see the campaign manager for Biden also saying this. Campaign manager called for mandatory gun seizures, back when she was working for Beto O'Rourke as well.
What a surprise.
I for one, am shook. We are actually the only campaign with a plan that supports mandatory buybacks of weapons of war. An assault weapon ban is very, very important, and we need to have it. But that only takes weapons of war off the streets in the future. It does nothing for weapons of war that are currently out there. Every weapon is a weapon of war. I hate this rhetoric. It is boring. This whole debate is boring, frankly, in that regard, because we all know the guns are going to stay forever. It's this idea that you're going to reform this by banning it. No, it's not happening. If you do that, then you don't have the United States.
Well,
in which case, what's the point in even living there?
And then there's also the question that we saw over here in England, which is like weapon of war. How do you define that? Where are the limits of that? Because if I use it in the right context, a butter knife could be a weapon of war.
It certainly is on the streets of London.
Exactly. Exactly.
If we go to the next one here, we have someone else who has taken up the mantle of banning every gun. We have Trudeau saying here that he's put a freeze on the ability to buy, sell, transfer, or import handguns anywhere in Canada. Fantastic.
This is a response to the Texas shooting.
I mean, if it is, it makes no goddamn sense.
Yeah, because that was in Texas. It was quite far from Canada.
But also, there was no handgun used. So...
These things don't need to make sense to the leftist brain, Callum.
Well, they never do. It's all about reforming the country into, well, part of the global order instead, which is to be a Europeanized country in which the individual has no rights, individual freedom means nothing, but the freedom of the state means everything instead.
For the elites, that's absolutely the case. I think for your average lefty on the street, it makes me feel bad that they're out there.
If they're that low-minded. If we go to the next one here, we also have the hilarious response and all of this. I mean, I'm going to go through some of the like weird red herrings I see throughout American gun debates. And again, as an outsider, I'm not really involved in this debate, but I just find it absurd that people pretend this is a real thing. So you have Occupy Democrats, verified checkmark here, being like, why the hell does an 18-year-old need an AR-15?
Ask Kyle Rittenhouse.
Next link, please. Yeah, there you go. Me at 18 in Fallujah. Just from some American.
Based.
Like, there you have it. That's why. Because if the state has these weapons, then I probably need these weapons to resist the state, or at least a reasonable amount to resist the state, because that's the purpose of the Second Amendment, which is to overthrow government tyranny, such as in Athens, for as an example, or anywhere else such actions take place. And if we go to the next one, we also have the fact that we have the weird leftist cope out of all of this. We have Vox here going with an article, mass shootings typically lead to looser gun laws, not stronger ones.
Good.
I wish this was true. We all know it's not. Like, I don't know why they're lying to us. They're just like, oh, but the data shows. No, it doesn't. The hell are you talking about? Like, every time there's a mass shooting, there's a massive push for gun control from the left, and if they're in power, they usually get their way. I mean, even if it's on tiny things or bigger things. So it's just obvious nonsense. But if we go to the next one, we have another article from Vox saying Australia confiscated 650,000 guns, murders and suicides plummeted. There's this argument that you've all seen it on John. What was it, John?
It was
John Oliver's.
No, I think it was John Stewart did one to begin with, and he actually had John Oliver talking through the story of what happened in Australia.
I remember
and it's not a good argument.
John Oliver did his own as well, I believe, on his own show.
Fair
which
play.
Just have them saying that, oh, look, they banned the guns and brought them all back, therefore no crime, everything good, don't worry. Now we should ban all of our guns, and that'll solve the problems entirely, and they won't just come from Mexico. Don't worry about it.
And then COVID came and everybody regretted it.
Yeah, I love how this is in response to the mass shooting, for example, and then you just think, my God, imagine if an Australian was able to get away with a mass shooting somewhere in the world after this gun buyback. That would blow a hole in the narrative.
That would be terrible.
Let's go to the next one, because of course Australians are still able to do terrible things. Of course, this is in New Zealand, but it was an Australian doing it, for people who don't know, who shouldn't have been able to have his guns anyway, which is a whole other story. But if we go to the next one, we have the fact that also just this myth is just BS as well, for the evidence here. If you scroll down, there's a graph showing all the Anglo nations, and the fact that the Anglosphere went through a period in which violent crime just went down across the board for everyone. This isn't the graph. You can keep going. There's one in here that shows that one. Yeah, so you can see here just Australia, Canada, the United States, and it's in the 90s. You have the fact that they banned guns and everywhere having a lower crime rate all over the place because, well, that's just what happened. So you're just already going with a trend and then claiming that that's what caused the trend, right? However, with BLM, different story. We can actually point to something that does increase homicides with guns, which is Black Lives Matter. If you go to the next one here, we have a graph of just murders, homicide victims, and blacks taking the brunt of BLM's further here, as you can see. So it's as it usually is in the United States, let's be frank. There's the per capita rate there for people listening. Basically, all of the races, pretty similar. Black Americans not doing so well in this regard. And then it gets to 2020, George Floyd dies, and black homicides go through the roof.
All in his name.
In the name of George Floyd,
Thank you, George, for sacrificing yourself.
Yeah. Second anniversary of George Floyd's death, the evidence is overwhelming. American elites have blood on their hands for the hysterical response to the police blotter incident that has since brought about thousands of incremental dead bodies in the black community, especially there. And then I thought we just... that's what I call homicide. If we go to the next one as well, we can also see the response, at least some other responses I saw from this debate, which I find noteworthy and interesting. Because here's the thing, if the guns aren't going to be banned, and they're not, if it's still going to be America, then you have to think about responses. And this is one of the funnier responses I've seen, which I do enjoy. And also, probably isn't a bad idea. And if a teacher's worth their salt, they probably do it as well. So this is a school which has all its teachers armed, and I just love how based it is, as the person says here.
Including the pastor, who is the head teacher of the school as well.
Let's play.
Well, in New Mexico, many of the teachers carry guns, just in case.
Show me your weapons and tell me what they are.
45, sir.
45.
I'm Assistant Pastor. This is the 45. Yes, Director of Security. 45.
The pastor carries a 45 in a case that looks like a Bible. The principal is also armed with a .38 semi-automatic pistol.
How many of you feel safer knowing that your teacher has a gun? All of you.
I mean, as you say, I love the Bible one. Like,
it's so wonderful.
I feel like every teacher should have that. Like the math teacher has it in a textbook. The geography teacher has it behind the maps.
No, I just like the idea that you go to this school and you just look around the library and the Bible, open it up and there's just a gun like in there with just a cut out bit from the pages.
Say your prayers. I mean, it's a meme, but it's also brilliant, frankly. So I must admit that is hilarious. And also, would you feel safer with your kids there if the teachers all had guns to protect them from a shooter? Probably yes. If you're an American,
absolutely. I mean, just beyond feeling safe if a shooter shows up, that's massive deterrence.
Yeah. So
is the shooter going to show up to this school or some other one?
So this is a very funny response, but I must admit there is the best response, which is from a friend of mine keeps sending me footage from Polk County, Florida, in which the sheriff there is unbelievably based.
I think I've seen. Yeah, this guy.
Yeah, his funniest one was probably when all the thefts started up, and he just openly said, "Look, if you're a thief in Florida, here's some advice." Go to California. You won't be charged. You do this here, we're going to arrest you and send you to jail. But let's play his response to the mass shooting, which is that if you come to our schools, you can get effed.
But if you come to a school in this county armed, we're going to do our best through either our guardians, our school resource officers, or our school resource deputy sheriffs to eliminate the threat outside of the school before they ever get to the children. We're trained to do that. Now, if you have trouble understanding that, let me give it to you in Polk County vernacular. This is the last thing you'll see before we put a bullet through your head if you're trying to hurt our children. We are going to shoot you graveyard dead if you come onto a campus with a gun, threatening our children or shooting at us.
Not just normal dead.
Graveyard dead.
Graveyard dead. That's amazing.
That's twice as dead. You can't even be necromancered back into the world after that.
You're already 6 feet under before you hit the floor.
I love him. I absolutely love him. I wish every sheriff was like that. I wish every law enforcement official ever was like that, frankly, because they are absolute gold. But there we are. That's my opinion on why I just hate the American gun debate, which is, to be frank, I think any American who is engaging in the gun debate should probably just open with the fact we're not banning the guns. Stop being stupid. And that should be the bottom line, because it's true. Because if you do that, then I don't really see the point in the United States frankly, because all your other rights are based on it.
I
And
could
also,
see a revival of secession movements if they actually tried to do a federal gun ban.
Yeah, I mean, I love the reminders people put out through COVID as well, which is like, hey, Australians, show me about all those guns that went. Enjoying your concentration camps. It's just like, yeah, that is true. And in the UK, we'll enjoy your hate speech laws. So, yeah, that's my opinion on it. If you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content we have on the site, such as the interview Carl did with David Rearboy. And if you want to follow Carl and see what else he's putting out, you can follow him on Getter at Carl Benjamin on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.